Charles Thompson.
What's going on, Sean? How you doing, man?
What's up, man?
How you doing, man? Good.
Everything good?
Everything good, yeah.
Good. Oh, it's trying to be
Professional.
little club shay up in there.
Yeah.
Well, let's rock.
Let's get it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Coach Love with Recruit Oklahoma, also known as ROK. As you know, with this podcast, we highlight and we recognize, Oklahoma legends in the game. I have a gentleman that is here with me. He's probably one of the fastest dudes I've ever seen in person with my own eyes. A highly touted athlete that hailed from Lawton, Oklahoma as an all-stater in football. He was recruited to play college football by the legendary Barry Switzer at Oklahoma University, and was also drafted by the Cincinnati Reds as a second baseman. As he focused on football, committing to the Sooners, he was a first-team All-Big 8 quarterback. He faced a few trials and tribulations, but which eventually repositioned him at Central State University in Ohio, where he led his team to a NAIA national championship. He's a Christ follower. He's a husband. He's a father of phenomenal athletes. He's a coach. He's a motivational speaker. And he's also a friend of mine. Welcome to the ROK Podcast, the one and only Charles Thompson.
Well, listen, Sean, I know when you gave me the call, it was certainly an honor to be a part of your first initial crew of people being on this show. And listen, everything has a start somewhere, man. I applaud you for, just trying to give back in not just in what you do, obviously coaching basketball, but in information as well.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So what you up to now?
A variety of things. I was spending this weekend, obviously, now that my son is back here, which we can certainly get into that, but we were a guest at a celebrity or fundraising golf tournament up in Bartersfield. And so I've spent a lot of time traveling around the country, coaching and training quarterbacks on a day-to-day basis. I'm certainly in the oil business, so I've been good. It's been good to me here in the state of Oklahoma. But, man, just been here trying to be involved in this community.
You mentioned your kids. What are they up to now?
Obviously, Casey's here now, that he's got his 7th year of college football from the NCAA because of the ACL injury that he sustained last year at FAU.
Okay.
And only been able to play 10 quarters instead of the 12.
Okay.
It gave him the right to come back to play. And so he's, at the University of Oklahoma. It's been kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
So that's what he's been doing. Kendall, who retired from the National Football League, is here. Raising his family, had my first grandchild, grandson.
Good.
Huh?
I didn't know he went to the NFL.
He played with the Rams and the Redskins a little bit.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird story to that.
Okay.
How that all transpired well with his journey. And then my other son, Cade, is obviously here as well. We all live relatively close to one another. Okay. And then then I have a daughter also.
Okay.
That's an Oklahoma City Thunder cheerleader. That's an old John Marshall.
Is she?
Her mother is an old John Marshall grad. So and part of the Franks family.
Okay. So. I need to get Charles on here.
You need to get him on here. Yeah, no, it's part of it.
Any grandkids yet?
I do. I have 3 grandkids. I got my first grandson, Kendall. I had a return of the year coming soon, but I got one granddaughter that's now in middle school, and then I got another granddaughter that's 2.5, 3, and then now I got my first grandson, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay.
They're all Kendall's kids.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As a competitive athlete as we were raising the kids. What was your approach to coaching them and raising them?
Sean, it's funny. Originally, it really wasn't. Early on, it wasn't a focus of coaching for me. I kind of got railroaded into coaching a little bit. I came home after a trip and found a bunch of equipment in my garage, and I was like, those old green army bags you used to carry equipment in. And so I started coaching T-ball initially with Kendall, who got involved in T-ball. And it was funny because my first T-ball game that I went to, I was still playing ball, and I came back during one of our off weeks. And Kendall was playing fall T-ball. And I'll never forget, Sean, I was sitting out there, and of course, back then I was still relatively, kind of more of a name then, and people were like, that's Charles Thompson's son, that's Charles Thompson's son. Well, he was out there picking flowers, man, and it just, balls going by him. He's more waving at me than he is. And I just told him, then I told his mom, I was like, listen, if I'm gonna, it's one thing if he's gonna play sports, I'm gonna teach him the right way to do things. Like I felt like it was my responsibility, being that I had all the knowledge and experience.
Right.
I'm not gonna expect some other dad who maybe not have it to pour into mine when I could. And so that was a focus. And I said that over a phone call. I came back home after at that time, and she had volunteered me to coach the team. And so that's kind of how I kind of reluctantly started coaching Kendall when he was, 5-6-year-old little T-ball kid. And that kind of grew into, I got done playing football myself, decided to retire due to an injury. And it was sort of his pursuing of that sports kind of helped me decide that, because I could have still went and played a little bit longer.
Okay, yeah.
But I decided, you know what, I've got a son. My time has passed. I didn't have the same desires to play the game.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah.
Gone through a shoulder injury and broken leg and all these sort of things. And I was like, I woke up in the hospital after one of my surgeries and said, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. And so the fact that I did have a son who was now wanting to be active, I thought, the one thing that I can do is now pour into him. And so it was an easy decision for me to start doing that. And so I just felt as a father, especially early on with my kids, it was my responsibility to give them the ins and the outs, and the do's and the don'ts, not just on the field, because I was a guy who experienced the ups and downs off the field too. Yeah. It was my responsibility to prep them and prepare them as best I could.
Gotcha. Makes sense. I'm same boat.
Yeah.
Same boat. Kind of going back to your early life. Mm-hmm. Were you born or were you raised in Lawton?
I was born in Lawton, but I early on in my childhood career, life was raised in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Okay.
And the one thing I do remember about Fort Smith was really, Sean, it was more segregated because all I remember was being around my own color, my own relatives, my own family. And it wasn't until I moved to Lawton that I was around a more segregated society environment. And so it was very difficult for me. I think I moved to Lawton. I think my mom met a soldier at Fort Chaffee, which is in Fort Smith. And then Fort Sill, of course, is in Lawton.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up in Lawton. I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
I just knew. I looked up, and one day I'm living in Lawton now. And I got friends of mine that are neighbors that are, like, they're white. I'm looking at my mom like, I don't know about this. My first elementary school I went to was Sweeney Elementary School.
B.C. Sweeney.
B.C. Sweeney, man.
I remember.
And I got in trouble a lot because it was a culture shock for me. I didn't want to be in Lawton. I wanted to be back in Arkansas with my cousins and what I knew was comfortable there. And so, so that was my life early on. And, as I look back on it, Sean, it was the best thing my mom ever did was moving me to introduce me to a different cultures.
Diversity.
Yeah, diversity.
Yeah. Well, so did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I mean, my mom, obviously, she was a single parent mom.
Yeah.
And raised my other. I ultimately have 8 brothers and 3 sisters.
Okay.
But my mom and dad never really were together.
Okay.
I'm the only. If you look at it, my bloodline, my mom and dad only had me. So I have 2 sides of family.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
So I had a mom's side and a dad's side. And so my mom's side, she raised, 3 boys and 2 girls.
Okay.
On her own. And so that was kind of early on in my childhood. That's the life that I lived with a single mom and raising, that many kids in the house.
So growing up, how many sports did you play? Did you try out or anything, or just?
I mean, so early on in Arkansas, everybody only played basketball, and so we lived right next to the project I lived in was a park that we all went to, and so basketball initially was a sport that I thought that I was destined to play. Yeah, I didn't know anything about baseball. I didn't know anything really about football until I got to Oklahoma. Yeah. And at 6 years old, I watched my first University of Oklahoma football game on a black and white TV in my living room.
6 years old. Okay.
6 years old. And it was 19, I say 6, maybe 6, 7. It was 1975. I'll never forget watching Steve Davis was the quarterback for the University of Oklahoma at the time. And he was always famous for the quarterback sneak. Instead of him sneaking, he dove over the top. And so that was just kind of a unique deal that I had never really seen that as a quarterback doing that. And so I kind of at an early age fell in love with football because of that. And in Lawton, football was king. And because I was, the time, in Arkansas, I was one of the younger cousins. Okay. So I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the most athletic. I had a whole family full of those people. You know what I'm saying? I was at the bottom of the totem pole, having to work my way up. When I got to Lawton in Oklahoma, I was the fastest kid in the school or the fastest kid in the class. And so all of a sudden, coaches began to come by the house and say, hey, we want him to play baseball. We want him to play basketball. We want him to play football.
Right.
And all I had to do was walk down the street. My first neighborhood that I lived in was Sweeney, and we lived 10 houses away from the elementary school. So my football team, I'm riding by and on my bike, and this football team is practicing football. And I'll never forget my first coach. His name was Terry Gaines.
Okay.
And he said, you want to play some football, son? And I was like, well, yeah. Oh, no, I'm back up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It actually, before that, my first school that I went to was Westwood. In the first 2 years of me playing football, Sean, I didn't know how to play. So I was just excited about getting my own helmet and shoulder pad because I had to share mine with my younger brother in the house. And so I go out to this football team at Westwood, and my first football team, let me back up and change the story because here's the truth. My first football team, I didn't know how to play.
Okay.
Didn't know nothing about the rules.
You just out there just
Just
athletic
running.
ability. Yeah.
Just running. I just showed up and walked around the school, and I walked to the school, and they was practicing, they said, how old are you? I said, oh, you can play for this team. So I went and played for this team, and we were at Westwood first. We'd moved from Sweeney and went over to the school called Westwood. And I just went out and played and got a uniform, and I was just happy to have a uniform. And they stuck me at tight end, Sean.
That was my first position.
The whole first year, all I did was just play tight end.
Well, no, I'll take that back. I played running back first, but when I came to Oklahoma City, I was playing tight end. We had some dogs on our team though, but
I had a lot. I thought they were good football players because they were just at the time they were better than me, but they knew how to play the position.
Because they knew how to play. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I played tight end, and in that first year, I didn't get the ball none. The second year, they decided to move me to running back. What happened at the end of the first year? I picked up a fumble.
Oh, and you was gone.
And I was because they already knew I was fast, but they know I had moves.
Yeah.
And I ran it all the way back, and the coach was like, oh, you coming next year? Next year team, you gonna play running back. So at the time, we had some guys, Terry and Gary Little, and their dad was the coach, and they had a cousin named Kevin or Kerry.
Okay.
So they were all the backfield.
Yeah.
And it was kind of daddy ball deal, and so I was rotating with Kerry.
Yeah.
And back then, we still kind of went in the wishbone, even because the OU was running the wishbone then, and I was one of the guys. And so the end of that second year, the coach started giving me ball more to where when I finally moved back over to Sweeney, my coach, Terry Gaines, said, I done watched you play. I'm going to make you my guy. And he was the first guy that really told me and believed in me that changed my perception of how I played the game. Like I began to really understand that I probably am a little bit faster and a little bit better than most of these kids out here. And that's really where Terry Gaines is really where my football career kind of just started soaring.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what he's kind of your role model, your inspiration.
He was my first coach from a football perspective that really just bought into me and told me how good I really could be.
Yeah.
And he was I'll be honest with you, in Lawton, he was my first black football coach. Like he was, he was more down to earth. He was just like, his brother at the time was his younger brother was one of the fullbacks that played on the same team my older brother played in at Lawton High.
Okay.
And so I admired and watched one of his younger brothers, and Terry was telling me stuff, and I kind of bought into him, Sean, because I feel like, man, he kind of knew. At the time, you know the deal back then, man, nobody wanted to be quarterback. Everybody wanted to be Tony Dorsett's.
Yeah.
The Franco Harris's, the Walter Paytons, the Eric Dickinson. Nobody wanted to be a quarterback. And so I was steadfast on being the best running back that I could be. And that's what I thought I would always be at an early age when I started my career.
You mentioned B.C. Sweeney. And you probably said, B.C. Sweeney. So my mom dated a guy, and he became later on in life, he just kind of became my father figure. And his name is Robert Stinnett.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know any
the Stinnett's.
Ron Stinnett.
Yeah, I know the
Michael Stinnett. And Lawrence Stinnett.
Yeah.
Those are like my brothers.
Yeah, I know all those guys. I know those guys from Lawton.
Them dudes taught me how to play football.
Yeah, no, that shit about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when he mentioned
B.C. Sweeney. That's it. Sweeney Jets, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my pride and joy, man. That's
Yeah.
really where my love for football kind of just swelled, and I just was ate up with playing football. Now I played baseball, played basketball. I played just about everything there was. I mean, I even tried boxing.
Now Michael Stinnett said he has the stolen base record, or do you have it? Or
well, at Lawton High.
Lawton High.
I had the stolen base record, and I'm not sure if it's ever been broken.
Okay.
The time I set all the records at Lawton, I'm not quite sure if it's been broken. So the 126 bases in the years I played there and never been thrown out. Stole
I don't know.
8 times in my career.
What?
Stole home
8
times.
Okay. Man.
Which is difficult to do.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, you were a multi-sport athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that you were drafted by the Reds in baseball, what other sports did you play besides?
Well, so what happened when junior high school, junior high, and I played football, baseball, and basketball all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
Okay.
And then high school come along, and my mom moved from Lawton and moved to Dallas. And it was around my 10th or 11th grade year, you know, I didn't want to move from Lawton because I was making a name for myself there. I didn't want to go away. I knew that Lawton High was where I wanted to be. And so my dad, who was a police officer there, lived on the other side of town. And so my mom opted to let me go live with my dad. And so I was living with my dad, which, as you obviously know, is for a kid, a son who's been living with his mom, to now go into a 2-parent home. My dad being a strict disciplinarian, my stepmom being tough on me, I didn't really like it initially at first. And so my dad, when I got to be going into my junior year, he had told me I kept twisting my ankle in basketball, and I was getting looked at by a lot of scouts with the noise I was making because I ran track too. But what happened was my 9th grade year, and back then Lawton had 7th, 8th, 9th in the junior high still.
Okay.
Okay. And so my 9th grade year, I pulled a groin extremely bad where I couldn't run. But my baseball coach, which happened to be a good friend of my brother's, who I was there when I was 10. I was there when they played softball. I was their bat boy for this Pepsi Cola Lawton softball team that one of my older brothers played for, Coach Dennis Toddy.
Yeah.
And he told me, man, you ought to come play baseball for me. I was like, I played baseball to somebody. I never really played it for the school. That was track time.
Okay.
And so I decided, I'll go out because I couldn't run track, and I went out and played baseball going after my 9th grade year. Well, then Carl Riker, who was the 9th grade coach, says, man, you could be a really impact player on the next level at playing baseball. And so I went to high school my 10th grade year and started playing baseball. I had a very successful year. Started center field for the most part my sophomore year. And then he decided to move me to second base. When he made that decision at second base, a lot of scouts started looking at me early on. And my dad saw that when I got to be a junior, said, you're getting recruited by all these schools in football, and you got people looking at you for baseball, but you're just playing basketball just for fun, and you're out here getting hurt all the time.
Man.
So he told me, you ain't gonna play basketball anymore.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, what? And so he's like, I said, what am I gonna do? He goes, you gonna get a job.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
I said, what? Yeah. I had never had to do that.
Yeah.
And so I was a little frustrated about it, and all my family on my dad's side had worked at Safeway at the time, which is now Homeland. Yeah. So they made me go get a job at Homeland, man, and I think I lasted 30 days because I didn't want to work there. So I never fulfilled up to the expectation of Homeland like my older brothers did, who one of them ended up being a career Homeland. He's now general manager and regional manager for territories in Houston. But that's what happened, Sean. I ended up, by the 11th grade year, I was just a baseball and football player at that point.
Okay. Did you make All-State in baseball? I
didn't make All-State in baseball, which was it was weird because I should have made All-State in baseball.
There was something going on like there. If you made All-State in 2 sports, you can only choose one of them or something like that. I think
when you played, but you still could be acknowledged of playing both. And so I didn't make it in baseball because everyone, and really what ultimately happened to me in baseball, even with scouts, if I had to do it over again, I would have done it differently.
Okay.
Because even through my whole entire career in high school, scouts would come watch me play, and they'd ask me, how serious are you with baseball? Man, I was so in love with football, it was like, I'm just playing baseball just because I'm playing it. I'm a football player. That's what I want to go do. Like, I was dead set on him. if given the opportunity to play for University of Oklahoma, Coach Barry Switzer. And so I was very vocal about that to everyone. I never forget, even out of high school, Sean, Lou Holtec recruited me at Minnesota.
Okay.
Right in the midst of, before I even signed, he took the job at Notre Dame. He calls me on the phone. He says, hey, I like you. I followed you. I've offered you at Minnesota. How serious would you be about Notre Dame? Man. Well, now that's a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But Sean, I'm from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing bigger than OU football for me.
Right.
So I told Ms. Holt, I appreciate you, but man, I'm going to play for Coach Barry Switzer, University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a sooner.
And that's what happened to me in baseball. Like, I would have gotten drafted a lot earlier in baseball. Yeah. I think I turned off a lot of people in baseball because, man, I was just so dead set on being that football player because that was my dream. My dream was, I never dreamed of playing baseball. My dream was running down that ramp in that crimson and cream on, man. That's just what it was from the age of 6 years old.
Now, you said you could have been drafted early. You talking about out of high school? Or
yes.
Just...
So the Reds were wanting to draft me, or a lot of teams wanted to draft me earlier, but at that time, it was uncommon to waste draft picks early on for guys who wasn't going to go play baseball now. Okay. And so if I'd have said, I'm open, if you draft me high enough, I would consider baseball. Even though I really wasn't, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have lied to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, because, I mean, you look at what Kyler Murray did. I mean, he was really set on playing football.
Right.
When he got drafted. But baseball, but then football came along because he was always open about it. I know his dad really well. So that's what I'm saying, too. I probably, if I had to do it over again, I would have kept a little bit close to the vest and like, oh, no, I'll play baseball. What is that contract going to look like?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Who were some of the best athletes that you played with at Lawton?
Obviously, the Douglas brothers, John and Donnie Douglas were tremendous athletes. I remember watching their older brother, Hootie Douglas, even when my older brother played, he was the first black quarterback in Lawton that I just admired. Like, he was just that bad dude. And so the Douglas family was obviously very talented. I played with a guy, James Bird, who was one of the only guys he was a multi-sport All-Stater at the year. Okay. He was an All-Stater in baseball.
I remember seeing that name.
Yeah, and then he was an All-Stater at football.
Okay.
And really was an honorable mention All-Stater in basketball. Yeah, and so he, in high school, Anthony Jones was a guy that was very talented, ended up playing ultimate basketball with the Lakers. I went to school with Stacey King in high school.
Yeah, I remember Stacey. Yeah.
So those are some of the guys who I was fortunate enough to play in high school with. Now, guys after me, the younger guys, Dwell Brewer and Sinet and all those guys, Will Shields, they were younger guys that came on after I left. Okay. Yeah. James Trapp, all those guys.
Yep. So I had the pleasure of playing with he may not have been on the caliber as Will Shields and Dwell, but Jermaine Bordeaux.
So
he went to
Lawton
and went to came to OSU with me.
Yeah.
And, I remember first time I met him. First time I met him, he's just this big old cocky.
Big old dude, swole up.
And
he would come out of high school.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, who's this dude?
Oh, yeah.
And so I found out he was going to Old State. I was like, okay, shit, we're going to have this dude. And little did I know how funny this dude was, man. And, like, we really didn't know him. So we're, like, All State weekend, we staying at the UCO campus. And, he's just hanging out with us. Me, Willie, and some other guys.
Yeah.
And we all go to McDonald's. He didn't have no money.
Yeah.
And so we all order our food, and so Bird walk up to the counter. Let me get some water, a couple of napkins.
He's serious.
Some ketchup. Some stuff I ain't got to pay for.
Yeah, got to pay for it. Like, I ain't got no money.
Yeah, some couple of packets of ketchup. I'm like, man, dude. I always just bust out laughing. I say, you need some money? I got a little bit.
What's funny, Sean? As I sit here. I met you a long time ago, man. I remember when you and Willie, both. And I was very close to Charles Franks and his family, and so I was pretty close to the John Marshall squad and people. And I never forget meeting you and Willie and Charles telling me the guys gonna play at the next level.
Yeah, man. I remember y'all came out and worked out a few times at John Marshall, and I'll never forget that. You and Charles, y'all were. Some dudes. Yeah. Some dudes.
Charles still close to this day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. To this day.
So I saw this stat, but do you know if you're still number 2 on Lawton's all-time total offense?
I don't know.
chart?
It's funny. I saw when you sent those questions over to me. I didn't. I really don't know. Like, I mean,
You're probably still up there.
to me, records don't really mean. I mean, it's. I guess it's always great to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
For the things that you've done. Everybody wants to be recognized.
Yeah.
For me, Sean. I mean, I tell people. I told kids this morning that some kids that I coach high school that are now in high school, and I said, man, the one thing that doesn't change. I can tell you when I played. Back in my day, my prime, and you couldn't tell me I wasn't the baddest dude on the field.
Right.
And I wasn't going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go show you.
Yeah.
And so what I feel confident in and what I'm proud of is that the people that saw me play, the people that played with me or against me or all that sort of stuff that coached me, they know I gave them everything I had on the football field. I was sold out to it, and I was a pretty good player. So that doesn't matter what records books say. It don't matter what some people's memories say. But I always look at the people that have been in the locker rooms with me. It's important about what they say.
All right, so let's talk about like recruiting for you.
Okay.
In football, tell me about your recruiting. Who?
Well, for me back then, I mean, there was only a selected amount of schools that were really option types programs. Mm-hmm. I got recruited by all of them across the country. Okay. You can name them. Then there was obviously Minnesota, the OUs, even OSU was not, but they were recruiting because of Pat Jones from the state, the SMUs, the Rices, the different, all the ones that ran the wishbone, obviously recruiting as a quarter. I mean,
did Army and Navy?
Yeah, they did. They were. I really was never. I mean, I grew up around the Army and military. I knew that. That's not where I wanted to go. What I'm saying? No, that wasn't my deal. Yeah. But yeah, so I was recruited by all the option style, the Arkansas, you name them. For me, really, it was kind of OU or bust. And most of those recruited me as a quarterback. Now, I did have a lot of other schools that were also recruiting me as a defensive back. And even OU was. People don't know this. OU really was unsure about where they were going to put me when they recruited me. They kind of brought me in as a quarterback and a defensive back. Bobby Proctor was my recruiter, lead recruiter at the time. He was a DB coach. Okay. And, to this day, Sean, I'm still the only backup quarterback in the history of OU football program that was also the starting punt returner. And that was something that I tell you, I'm still proud of that.
Yeah.
You think about that. I mean, how many backup quarterbacks do you know? The starting punt returner, I did that. But so when I first, like I said, so most of the schools that were recruiting me, most of them that were outside of the option style were recruiting me as a defensive back. Okay. So that's how I made All-State, by the way. Okay, I didn't make All-State as a quarterback.
Play just multiple positions?
Yeah, I made it because at the time coming out, I made it as a quarterback. I was going to play quarterback, but I was also on the list as a defensive back. Okay. Because Mike Gundy and Quinn Grovey. Quinn was the 4A state championship. Duncan was rolling then. Right. And Midwest City was rolling and at back then 5A was the highest. And they both had won state championships. Yeah. And here I am, didn't win state championships. So they were selected, as first and foremost. I don't know, back then they had the blue chip.
Yeah.
So I made the blue chip. But I made it as a DB. Okay. Not as a quarterback because of those two guys, Gotcha. So a lot of my recruiting deals included Quinn and Mike in that equation as well too.
Funny story. Well, another small world story. So Quinn Grovey, from Duncan, correct?
Yes.
And I heard you heard me mention the Stinnetts.
Yes.
Patricia Stinnett was one of the sisters.
Okay.
Her husband, Trent Grovey.
Okay.
That was Quinn's brother.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's kind of just the connection of all these little
things.
And
it's funny. So the whole time growing up, Quinn and I never met through our elementary years. Okay. But our moms was best friends.
Okay.
I mean, they were best friends. Bobby Jean and Willie Jean were best friends. And so when his mom would come down to Lawton from Duncan, she'd be talking about her son, Quinn, and all these stuff that he'd done. I'm thinking like, this dude ain't as cold as me. But my mom would go up to Duncan, she'd talk about me. Yeah. So the first time I met Quinn, we're at a track meet in the 7th grade. Uh-oh. And this is how we met. In lane number 2 is Charles Thompson, where this guy starts looking at me.
I'm like, wait a minute.
And then they said, lane number 3 is Quinn Grovey. I'm like,
talking about you.
I said, all hell. Well, I got to come on with it today because I was used to winning easily in track. Back then, 7th grade track guys only ran against 7th graders.
Yeah.
It wasn't very 7th graders as fast as I was.
Right.
But Quinn beat me that day. The only time we ever raced on the track. And I'll never forget. And then we had another altercation in junior high where we played basketball.
Okay.
And I went to Thomas and quit at Duncan. And so we played Duncan. And the coach goes, "You're going to have to guard Quinn the whole game." And I think Quinn might have gave me 26 that day. But Quinn was a really good athlete.
Yeah.
And of course went on. But we ended up, obviously, through our recruitment, it's funny, Mike Gundy and Quinn took our official visits to OU on the same weekend.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you about a story. We'll get to that part.
Okay. So you guys make All-State. This is and you're playing at where was that game played?
In Tulsa.
It was in Tulsa?
In Skelly Stadium.
A little setback for you. During the All-State week, you were arrested for shoplifting. And were you punished from that, or did they remove you from the team?
So here's the real story.
Okay.
I didn't actually shoplift.
Okay.
I was going to.
Okay.
Just true story.
Okay.
But the day before, I had shoplifted.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But they had that on video.
Okay.
But I came back to the same store.
Okay. And then they saw you again.
And they saw me, and I was getting ready to. It was just a pair of freaking driving gloves, and you know how kids are. It was kind of a deal, Sean. I'll be honest with you. The day before, it was a bunch of us doing it. Kind of as like, well, I can steal more. Kids is being kids, and I happened to. Here's what happened. True story. I went back. I saw a chick that kind of worked to one of the deals. So I was like, I'm gonna go back. Yeah. So she gave me a phone number. I went back. I met up. She was working. I'm working. I'll get off it. So I went back after one of our practice. I was like, I'm gonna swoop by there real quick. And I said, I'm gonna walk to the store while I'm waiting on her. Well, I actually picked up a pair of gloves, and I thought about. I was like, I'm looking around. But somebody was watching me.
Yeah.
And so I thought, they might have saw me from yesterday. So I put the gloves down and leave.
Yeah.
Well, they start chasing me anyway. So lo and behold, obviously the footage ended up getting me for the day before.
Yeah.
And although they didn't find anything on me, I was guilty the day before.
Right.
Which, I'm 56 years old now, I can tell.
Yeah.
So, and so because of that, I wasn't, they didn't allow, although I'm listed as an All-Star, I wasn't allowed to play in the game. So technically speaking, if you look at the list, because you don't play in the game, you're not listed as officially as an All-Stater. Okay. So if you look back at it, it's not official that I was ever an All-Stater because of that.
Okay, I got you. Getting into college, you know, what I think we talked about what made you decide football over baseball.
Well, football was my love.
You wanted to be,
and I wanted to play for the University of Oklahoma, and that's why I chose OU over any other school.
Okay.
Like it's funny. So I was very seriously, Sean, thinking about coming to OSU.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It was really difficult decision because at the time, Pat Jones, who also was a great recruiter, by the way, he came in my home. He came in my home, and I believed him.
Yeah.
He told me at the time, Ronnie Williams was the quarterback for the Oklahoma State, and he said, "I guarantee you, one of these three out of this class will ultimately be my starting quarterback because I don't think that I can, finish the next couple of years with Ronnie Williams as a guy." They ended up moving Ronnie Williams to tight end, and he didn't lie. Mike Gundy ended up being the quarterback. And so the battle for me was, do I go with where my heart or where I think I can play faster?
Yeah.
And in the end, it was a struggle, but I just had been dreaming since 6 to wear that crimson and cream. And so I decided and OU at the time was telling me, I don't know if you're going to be quarterback or DB.
Because Jamel Holloway was quarterback, right?
A freshman. They just won a national championship with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like a true freshman. Yeah. Here I am walking in, and so I made a decision, honestly, it didn't matter whether I was quarterback or DB. My dream was to play for the University of Oklahoma. I'm going to get on the field. Yeah. I'm taking somebody's spot was my mindset. So that's why I ultimately chose the University of Oklahoma, because that was ultimately my dream choice.
Yeah. Were you number 6 in high school?
No, I was number 1. So how I ended up with number 6, when I got to Oklahoma, I wanted number 1. But Eric Mitchell, who was the other phenomenal freshman, had number one.
Okay.
And so they was like, you're not getting that. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
You ain't got no clout.
Yeah.
You ain't law in Oklahoma, Doc.
Right.
You gonna have to get another number. And so the first time that I really fell in love with an option quarterback at the University of Oklahoma, the first quarterback I ever watched was Steve Davis. Mm-hmm. The first quarterback I fell in love with was Thomas Lott.
Okay.
Because he wore the bandana.
Okay. Yeah.
He wore number 6, and that's why I picked number 6. Mm.
You know what? I tell, you know, PJ Mills, one of the guys I was watching before I got into college. Mm-hmm. So he was one of the, I was considering going to be a Sooner.
Mm-hmm. I knew that.
But Howard Schnellenberger was the head coach.
That wasn't a good mix. It just wasn't it.
What was your transition like from high school to college? Was it easy for you?
No, it was difficult. It was, you know, obviously I tell people this all the time, Sean. I have a saying as I coach young kids. Mm-hmm. You know, it's easy to always be in the front of the bus and everybody's patting you on the back. Yeah. You see your name in highlights. You're the talk of the conversation, talk of the town. Mm-hmm. You identify, know this. Yeah. When you go to college, initially you go from the front to the back of the bus.
Yeah.
And now you're in meeting rooms where coaches ain't talking to you. Right. They ain't looking at you. They looking through you, but they ain't looking at you.
Right.
You know, and so it was difficult. I remember when I first got there as a true freshman, in all my years of sports, I'd never not been the guy.
You're right.
And I got to OU, and Jamel was the guy. Mm-hmm. And I never forget the first meeting I went to after about a week being on campus. And back then, the freshmen reported 2 weeks before fall camp. They didn't report not like they do in June and all that. And so the first 2 weeks, the first week, it's just freshmen only. Yeah. And then the varsity comes. Mm-hmm. So I done learned a little bit of offense because I done ran it for a week by myself and all this stuff. But now here comes Jamel and Eric running the offense, Sean. And I sized up Jamel for about a week. And I walked into Coach Donna's office, and I said, I'm better than him. I can beat him out. Now. That's what I said, right now. Because I just always felt like although he was smarter, he knew the offense, the only thing that I was too fast. Mm-hmm. And although Jamel knew how to run the opposite, he could go 40. I could go 80. Yeah. I could go 90. Right. I can turn that corner in a blink, and I'm gone. Yeah. And I knew that I could put in the work to be as smart as he was offensively to learn the offense. In reality, I really wasn't ready. And so it was a tough transition being redshirted, and you know this. You know, it's funny, my middle son, Casey, had gone through the redshirt process, and I tell kids all the time, back then when you redshirted, you didn't travel. Right. And it was embarrassing. It was tough for me, Sean, because I came out of high school weighing 155 pounds. Mm. My first year that I played on the field at OU was 164. Wow. Okay? So while I'm walking around campus, if I wasn't with football players, people didn't think I was a football player.
Yeah, they didn't know who you were.
And this is what happened to me on a road game when I had to be left because I was a redshirt, not traveling. I'm walking, and a bunch of girls asked me, like, what do you do here? I said, I'm on the football team. Man, you don't play football. This is what happened. They said, they're playing right now. There's a game on. If you're a football player, you'd be there. Right. And it was one of the most humbling and embarrassing experiences to the point where on games that I didn't travel, I either went to the city or went home. I didn't want to be around campus. And when people know, I didn't want the people to know that I wasn't on the traveling team. Right. And so it was tough as that first year of being redshirted, not being able to be a part of it. Man, it was just difficult. It was difficult that first year, nonetheless. But it was a mental challenge.
Fast forward to a time that you playing. Mm-hmm. Okay. What was your game day, even in high school, what was like a game day ritual for you? Like when you played in football, let's say.
Well, so it was always about the preparation. Mm-hmm. It was always about how back then I always wore, then it wasn't popular, but I always wore Nike socks. Okay. And I always had to fold them. They were the longer socks. And back then I would take them about mid-high on my leg, and I would fold them just perfectly. And it had to be folded just right.
Just right.
I had a towel that I would wear that I got adopted to my first year. I had a 300ZX, a Nissan 300ZX that I put King Charles VI on there. Okay. And I felt like at some point this is going to be my crowning. So when I started playing, I used that towel to remind me that every king had to conquer things and overcome things. Mm-hmm. And so it reminded me of the battle that I went through. Yeah. And so that was part of it. So I always lay that out. Mm-hmm. And then I wore a neck brace. I couldn't wear the identifying things like Thomas Slot with the bandana. So they did allow me to wear the neck brace at the time. And the neck brace was from my high school coach. Had a saying called Hanta Yo, which was what I wore around my neck.
Was that just a Lawton thing?
It was a Lawton thing.
Okay, yeah.
And it was our Lawton High saying that was an Indian Sioux meaning saying that meant clear the way. And so that was my motto, was you think I'm little, and you didn't think about me when I was red-shirted. But you're going to have to clear the way now. I'm coming through. Boy. That's right. I'm about to give you something real quick. So that was part of my ritual.
Yeah.
That process of that, and just I had a saying that I always said before every start of every game. I'd sit down on one knee, and I don't know why I would say it. I would touch my nose 3 times and say, "Lord, please Goldilocks." And that was part of my ritual.
So what does that mean?
Just something I always did. It was like a good luck deal.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to do it in baseball quite a bit before I got up to the plate and bat.
Lord, Goldilocks.
Lord, please Goldilocks.
Lord, please Goldilocks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Goldilocks was obviously, just a good luck saying that I don't know where I got it from, but I just adopted it. So I always, before every game, I would kneel down, and that's what I would say to myself.
And just 1, 2, 3, and then
Lord, please Goldilocks.
That's different.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Well, you were different.
Yeah.
Take me through that game where you beat the number 1 ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers.
There are, I saw one of your questions, Sean. You asked me about one of the most memorable games that I ever played, and that would be it.
That would be it, okay.
For me, for the University of Oklahoma. Man, listen, it's, like I said, going through the struggles of, I felt like that was sort of the crowning of, so to speak, of King Charles VI.
Yeah.
You only remembered it at Oklahoma as a quarterback for the championships you win for the most part. And so it was, I knew Jamel had won the Big 8 conference. Oklahoma had won it several years in a row. I knew that he had won the national championship. We were ranked number 1 all year. And it was motivation for me, Sean, that before that game, my first start was Missouri. Jamel got hurt in the OSU game, tore his ACL, and I never forget being on the headset and Coach Donnan speaking to me and saying, "Hey, you got what you wanted." And I was like, "What do you mean?" So I thought Jamel just had an ankle sprain. It wasn't no big deal.
Okay.
And we were on the headset, and he goes, "Jamel's out for the season.
Oh, dang.
You're the starting quarterback here on out." And I tell people this all the time. No matter how bold and big people tell you they are, in that moment, it get a little bit tight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, ooh. Oh, and so I remember getting hit in the OSU game, that first game, and I thought I broke my ribs. And I remember calling my brother and saying I didn't want to tell anyone because there's no way that I was not going to take advantage of this opportunity. I'd been dreaming of this moment my entire life. So the week in the Missouri, I was kind of anxious and dealing with my rib injury. And I went out there, and we were supposed to beat them, favored to beat them by 50. And we barely beat them 17-14. So we've been ranked number 1 all year long, and Nebraska we had to go on the road. And I'll never forget reading an article, and it says, we had doubts about Oklahoma at the start of the season that Nebraska had closed the gap. Even with Jamel Holloway, there was doubt. We don't have any with Charles Thompson. They moved Oklahoma from number 1, even though we won, and knew Nebraska number 1 and moved us number 2 because of me. And I took that personal.
Man,
talk
about motivation.
I took that personal, Doc. I took that personal. It was very personal for me.
And then you...
And I remember doing that week of practice. It was Thursday afternoon. Now, and all my linemen had always had confidence in me. All my guys, and they were telling me in the huddle, "You'll be okay." And I'll never forget this, Sean. It's Thursday evening. We had practiced in the evening because we were going to play evening game. And Coach Switzer stopped practice. Blew the whistle. I'm like, what the heck's going on? He walks up to me in the middle of the huddle. And this is what he says to me. He said, "Charlie Thompson, let me tell you something, son."
Call you Charlie?
That's what he always called me. He said, "If you play like you've been practicing all week, you're going to shock the nation on Saturday." He said, "Trust me." And I believe that. And that's what, we went down there, and obviously on the road, I'd always dreamed of my first OU football game that I went to was OU Nebraska in 1980.
Okay.
When they had the 3 horsemen, Turner Gill, Mike Rozier, and Urban Fryer. And of course, they ended up losing. That's the famous Spencer Tillman diving from the 5.
Okay, yeah.
And OU lost still that day. My sister was in a band there. She took me there. And I'd watch every year at Thanksgiving. You know, OU Nebraska played every Thanksgiving year. And so my dream was I want to have them throwing those oranges on the field one day because I've led the Sooners to beat the Nebraska Cornhuskers and go play for the right. To play for a national championship in the Orange Bowl. And so that was really that victory, going in there and winning 17-7 as a freshman that no one thought I could do.
Yeah.
The right to go play for the national championship, win the Big 8, rushing for 126 yards that day, and just guiding that team was probably the biggest moment for me as an Oklahoma Sooner.
That's crazy. That's dope, man. You never know, like when people just playing games, you never know the motivation behind the games, and I never would have known that because just because they put it in the backup quarterback, they think, oh, we just want to rank them lower.
Yeah.
I mean, that's motivation right there.
Hell no, I was motivated the whole time.
Yeah.
It was like, but I'm telling you, that week,
that was ice, yeah.
Oh, they feel me. And you know what's...
And then when Coach Switzer says that...
Yeah, he said that
crazy.
to me. Like that, it was all like, oh, he was one of those holy... like, that is like, oh... like
clouds over
there. Yeah, I remember he stopped the whole practice. He just said, Charlie Thompson, let me tell you. So I still remember the words like it was yesterday, man. It was... And just my old lineman, looking at my lineman, listen... they all believed in me, and it was just, we went in there confident, man.
Yeah,
went in there confident.
Do you keep up with any of those guys? Like, were you even close to Jamel? I mean,
we were close. We were roommates at one time, and I'm actually doing a camp with Jamel. In this week, in about a week, this coming week. Okay. We communicate still.
Yeah. What about any of the other?
I mean, Damon still are very, very close. Charles Franks and I. I mean, we're still like that. I mean, and listen, mostly all the guys. It's funny. I'm closer now to the guys who played younger after me than I am the guys who really play with me. Yeah. But we've had some reunion stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen some stuff that Kel Gundy's doing, even with the OU OSU deal, the Bedlam deal. And so I'm getting a chance now, being that my son's here back in Oklahoma, to be involved in more of the Sooner stuff where I'm seeing more of the guys I play with. Tink and they're younger than me. Tink and Steve Collins, still really good. I mean, those guys are guys that, I mean, they're like, even after ball, we all stay kind of close.
In '88, you broke your leg against Nebraska. So what went through your mind at that time?
Pain. I mean, it was just.
I mean, of course.
Yeah, it was just. It was more so the disappointment of losing that game. We lost 7-3, and it was an opportunity for me to win another Big 8 championship.
Was that the championship game?
It would have been. Yeah, Nebraska ended up winning the championship because they won that game.
Okay.
And there was a right to go play again at the Orange Bowl. We lost 7-3, and I ended up breaking my leg, which ultimately was the last football game that I played at the University of Oklahoma. So at the time of the leg breakage, I didn't really think that.
Yeah.
Also that began some months later, the downfall that we can certainly get into. But it was just a disappointment losing the game, and that was going to be part of my legacy, and I didn't want that at the time.
Right.
Didn't know that there was even darker days coming even beyond that.
Yeah. So I was going to say in that same year. That's when, like you said, the NCAA placed OU on probation for 3 years, or for some violations and stuff like that, cars, cash, tickets and stuff like that. How much did you know about any of that stuff, or did you see it? I mean, you ain't gotta...
unfortunately, I was a part of it.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we got in violation was, it's funny, at the time, Jamel and I think we went and picked up Mike Gundy, who was a quarterback at OSU at the time, in a limo.
Okay.
That was owned by one of the boosters.
Okay.
And we went and signed autographs at this drugstore that was part of the children's, one of the guys that owned it. So we didn't know it was a violation at the time, but because we went and did that was one of the things that OU actually got on probation, was that actual trip. And Hartley Dykes and Thurman and all, we hung out and did all the time. And so there were a couple of things as well that I think some things that Hartley's recruitment that they'd done with OU had gotten us on some probation and stuff, even though he went to OSU. But there's some things that were disclosed there, and just a lot of different things that, unfortunately, that I was a part of. We got, it's like they got caught then, but it's stuff that had been going on for years, that unfortunate, hate to say it. It's funny now, because a lot of that stuff is what NIL and stuff is doing now. Exactly. It's like it's legal.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Should have been along 20 years later, 30 years later, whatever it is.
Man, I got two dates that in your career. January 26th, 1989. Does that date mean?
That date does not particularly stick out.
So
the next one does.
February 13th.
That one does for sure. That's a February 13, 1989. It's entrenched in my brain and mind and my, the being to who I am.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was the day I got arrested. And it's a day I'll never forget. So, No, that one has significant value. And it's also a day that I look at as a blessing, too. Like, it's I can look back on it. But no, that's a tough day, yeah.
Yeah, so that...
February, the January 26th, what happened?
So, and you probably didn't even remember that day that you actually made that transaction to the FBI agent. The date that it happened, and then, as according to the news reports and stuff.
Yeah.
And February 13th.
And so that was a little different because the transaction actually really wasn't mine. I was present in a situation where it was kind of like one of my buddies who had set me up coerced me to being involved there.
Yeah.
And I was involved. I'm not going to say that I wasn't. Yeah. And so I was guilty of what I actually entered the spinning prison was conspiracy. I didn't know anything. I didn't know you could get in trouble about a conversation.
But
you know what I'm saying? Like
talking about it.
Like really talking about it. That's what I was really guilty of.
Okay.
The actual transaction wasn't really anything that I normally did. You know what I'm saying? It was I had another person that I was setting up that did that, and I just happened to be. They made sure that I was there because he was working undercover at the time, and I ended up being one of the targets.
Gotcha. And so on that, I mean, what was going through your mind how did it happen?
The February 13th?
How did it happen?
Here's ultimately what happened. So somewhere in between that transaction time and February the 13th, 1989, Coach Wichter's made aware that there's some issues going on. Yeah. And they had asked me to we're going to allow you to move off campus. Because I think what it was, they thought that there might be some stuff coming down, and as I look back on it, they maybe thought we didn't want him coming, they didn't want the police coming to the campus to arrest me. They're going to allow me to move off. I don't know they have. I'm just saying that's...
Yeah.
And so I was asked to go talk. At the time, it's just when I was told, you need to go talk to a lawyer. I was like, well, I don't know nobody. You got... Right. So they gave me a lawyer to go talk to, and so initially that day, I went in there, Sean, just thinking that I didn't know nothing was going on.
Right. Yeah.
I just found like an hour or two ago, I'm under some kind of investigation. I knew what I'd been involved with, but I didn't think it was that serious.
Yeah, right.
What the heck is going on? I'm thinking we can figure this out.
Yeah.
And so I had been cleaning up my dorm room to get ready to move out. And so the meeting set was at 5:30 to go see the attorney. I go in the attorney's office and he's like, let me go talk to these guys and see what's going on because there ain't even been no charges filed. We'll try to cut this off at the path.
Right.
I said, okay. So he leaves his office. I'm in the office waiting 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
If you ever remember on the news, they showed me in his office filming. They were filming on the outside. So I started noticing.
What's going on?
News reporters out there. What the hell is this? He walks in, back from the meeting. Now I'm thinking I'm finna go back and go finish packing.
No.
He says to me, this is quote unquote, well, they got you, buddy. Sean, listen to me. I can't make this up. Now you think about it. You're 18, 19 years old. And you look at him like what?
They got you, buddy.
Well, I mean, I told you I didn't tell you. What you mean they got me? Yeah, they got you, and they're here to arrest you. Like now?
Right, yeah.
Like right now.
Yeah.
And that's how it all went down.
Golly.
I was caught off guard. It was just a total blindsided deal. And that's how it went down.
Man,
it went from hero to zero that quick. That quick, man. Just bam, just like that,
Well.
Yep. I'll never forget that. He walked in and he just said, well, they got you, buddy. I'm like, what? Let me tell
right now?
What does that mean, though? I'm like, okay, but I mean, I already do. I told you what I did. But I mean, what do you mean they got and they're here to arrest you?
Man.
What? Right now? Yeah.
Yeah,
and the guys coming in the door.
They're right
the
there.
FBI.
Yeah, man. So obviously you were removed from the team and all of that.
Going to jail. I went to jail.
Yeah. Just first went to jail.
Yeah, I went to jail that evening, and obviously I knew after that I was dismissed from the team, kicked out of university. It was all a big public deal.
Cover Sports Illustrated.
Cover Sports Illustrated. That happened a couple of days later, which was also kind of a weird deal. You know, my attorneys at the time, I didn't have an attorney. I ended up getting hooked up with an attorney, and a very good one at the time. Garvin Isaac was a very good attorney, criminal defense attorney. And Kenneth Brown, who is, God rest his soul, kind of helped me through it. He was a guy that I did know. He was a personal injury attorney, but he kind of helped guide me through it. He was a guy that actually originally had helped me start writing my book that ultimately got published back then. And so I did all that. And so I'll just never forget the whole concept of thinking. So when I go to prison, when I go to court, my mom and everybody, they brought me this suit, Sean. And the day that they caught me in that orange jumpsuit, I wasn't even supposed to be wearing that.
It's before you supposed to have that suit on?
Yes. Man. It was a setup.
Yeah.
And they took me underground, and so my path of how I went wasn't even supposed to be known.
Right.
And I turned this corner, and there's more cameras than this, like taking pictures of it. And
so they scheduled this.
They scheduled it up. Yeah. It was not, and they wouldn't let me use. My lawyer was just outright just furious about the not letting me put on my suit deal. Yeah. You know, and that was kind of, but it all made sense what was going on. And I mean, I was 19 at the time, Sean, and man, it was, you know, if I could tell you, it was real. You know, living out that dream. It was also as heartbreaking. Yeah. Going through that, it was almost like a nightmare. It was tough. Man, everybody's around you when you're the quarterback for University of Oklahoma and getting your names in paper and limelight and all this and that. But you find out real quick, get in some trouble. Lose that.
You find out who your friends are.
You find out who your friend and family is.
Yeah, family, yeah.
I mean, period. Like even I had some of my family members that, you know, were so embarrassed to be around me. Wow. I felt like, you know, for a time there, I still feel like this a little bit. One of the thorns in my side is I feel like to a degree I let Lawton down because I was really one of the first original ones that were, you know, kind of got to that forefront of, you know, leaving Lawton and, you know, being on that stage at the University of Oklahoma, you know, the pride of the state, you know, and so I feel like that I did let, you know, a lot of people down, certainly my family, my coaches, you know, my friends and myself. And most importantly, Coach Switzer. It was tough because I admired him. He's still today a very special person to me. And he's just a special guy. And so it was tough, you know, not only disappointing my family, but those people that really believed in me and gave me the opportunity.
So I see some.
Well, I wear these, Sean. Also, there's stories behind this. You know, I'm involved in, you know, youth sports in this community. You know, it's funny. God took me through a lot. Man, it's made me. You know, God only knows what to put on you that He knows you can bear. You can handle. He made me to be who I am, to deal with the things that I've had to deal with, and so I've learned to embrace it. You know, it's not anything that I'm necessarily proud of, but I use it as a platform to try to give back. And so I came back to this community, and when my son Kendall got involved in sports, what I realized that I had a gift that was there to be given back, to pay it forward with my talent, my knowledge, and my good and bad experience. There was not a lot of people that could walk around and say that they've been on the highs and lows that I've been through. And so I felt like that I could be to some other kid who maybe didn't have a dad around, that what I didn't have, that father figure, that person telling the real truth. Don't do that.
Right.
This is what's gonna happen to you.
Yeah.
Why? I lived it.
I've done it. Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah.
Trust me. Whatever you do, don't think you're getting away with it. You're just getting by for the time. And so when I got involved in doing that, one of the biggest things that I wanted to do was I learned that listen, I'll never be the head coach of the University of Oklahoma. It's just not that. But Barry Switzer had a profound influence on my life. Daryl Alslager, the Carl Rikers, the Terry Gaines had a profound influence on my life. And so although I can never be the coach at the University of Oklahoma, but I know that he impacted so many lives, not just by the coach he was to him, but by the man he was to him.
Right.
And I knew that I could do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I wear this ring and being involved in the community, because it symbols something that I build. That's my legacy now, you know, and no one can take that away from me.
So is this why?
That's a OICYO youth football league that Chuck Clemens and I at the YBI have joined together, and we formed the Oklahoma Inner City Youth Football League, which is something that I'm proud of, and it stands strong today. We're getting ready to move into a new facility at Woodson, although I'm disappointed a little bit in how the city has treated us, you know. But they've put $9 million, and it was in the complex. That Sean, I spent 20-something years over there at Woodson Park. And, you know, it's funny now. Everybody wants to jump in and take over now. It's brand new, shiny, but they didn't care when we were out there struggling with it and
trying to get it,
and building it up. And there's thousands of kids, the Gerald McCoys, the Dominique Franks, and all these guys who have played through these programs, and many, not like my own, that the thousands of kids in this community that have benefited. And so that's why I wear this ring proudly. Yeah. This other ring that I wear is a 7-on-7 national championship ring. Okay. My son Casey this year came back and been doing a 7-on-7 team, Hustle Link, with kind of the shirt that I'm wearing. Yeah. Is the organization I have, Hustle Link 405, a good friend of mine. This is a month ago. Okay. A friend of mine, Tony Ballard, kind of was involved had an organization out of Atlanta. And I asked him, man, let me adopt your name because I love what he represents. And so I adopted his Hustle Link. We're the 405 chapter of that. Yeah. And I've been doing this, and I started because I was in the Army All-American Combine, and I looked around and I didn't see a lot of these kids that were from Oklahoma. This is about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was coaching a group about 50 quarterbacks, and I thought every kid that I talked to, they talked about the offer that they started getting, and it believe it or not, it had to do with starting out with their 7-on-7 team. Yeah. And so I was like, man, Oklahoma's behind. And so I came, there was a couple groups doing it, Sooner 7, and some other people doing it, but not nobody really in Oklahoma City. And so that's why I kind of started doing it. And I've been after chasing the championship, and it was kind of been a challenge of mine. And so my son Casey, because he was now at the University of Oklahoma, he was able to coach with me this past year, and he adopted, Sean, his own playbook that he learned from the 5. I mean, he's been under Steve Sarkisian and all these other people. Yeah, he became the offensive coordinator for my team. We went down there with the top 40 teams in the country in Dallas, and we don't have any, but maybe a few kids that are 3-star with several offers, and went 8-0 and won a national championship. And so I wear this because of him, and because it signifies, you know, our unity and what we were able to accomplish together. You know, so
some good stuff, good hardware, good. I mean, you representing all the right things, and except you had. But no,
I did wear that on purpose, by the way. You know that, don't you?
Man, I know. Did you ever? Did y'all? You beat Oklahoma State when y'all played them?
Never lost to Oklahoma State or Texas my whole time there. Okay. Lost to Nebraska once.
Okay. Well, I lost to Nebraska a couple times.
And Colorado never lost to them either. Obviously, Colorado became a powerhouse after that. I
tell a few people this, that when people ask about my recruiting, I was originally committed to Colorado.
Really?
Coach Gregory, him and Bob Simmons were recruiting me at Colorado. And so so I was going to go there. They come to the school like almost every week. And then, of course, when Coach Simmons came to O State.
That's right.
Straight to my house.
Yeah.
Him and what was that other coach? Tim Reynolds, running backs coach.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Oh, he's from Lawton too, ain't
Yes, he went to the coach at Lawton High. Lawton High, yeah. So,
he won a national championship.
Yes, with McFadden and those guys.
Yeah, so him, Reynolds, and
Maurice Mayfield, who's a relative of mine on my stepmother's side.
Yeah, they came to the house, man. I was like, okay.
And you know, Coach Simmons was really one of the old. Listen, I really like Pat Jones. And I really liked Coach Simmons as well. Coach Simmons was one of the OSU coaches. Now I didn't know him personally, but from afar, I really liked him. You know, and
it was cool.
And for the record, just so you know, like I really like Mike Gundy. Like Mike Gundy and I have a history, you know, going back since do the baseball competing deals and obviously recruiting together. I mean, I really think I don't know what people's opinion is of him, but I really think he's done a great job for Oklahoma State.
You know, I like Coach Gundy was a quarterbacks coach when I was playing there. So. Tim, so you once you went through your time, jail and removed from the team and things like that, and you decided to come back and play at Central State University at Ohio in Ohio. So tell me about that experience and how you guys.
Well, so it was a long story short. I really was when I got back. I said I was going to go back and play college ball. I knew that, for me, Sean, if I was going to have a chance to play at the next level, it wasn't going to be quarterback. And so I was only interested in schools that were interested in me playing any other position other than quarterback.
Okay.
Most of them were only interested in playing quarterback, and I had quite a few of them. I mean, even some D1 prospects as well. But Central State had called me up, and one of their coaches had coached at Central State here, and Terry Jones, he had knew me from when I was at Oklahoma. He also grew up like 10 miles from Fort Smith, Arkansas. Okay. So he knew my family there. Yeah. And so he called me on the phone and says, "Hey man, would you consider coming to Central State?" And I didn't know anything about Central State.
Yeah, I didn't know until I saw you went to.
Well, the only thing I knew at the time, Central State, that was the school that if you watch the Cosby Show, and they're running on that track, that was at Central State. Okay. If Mike Tyson got his honorary doctorate degree. From Central State.
I didn't.
So that's the only thing I knew, and so. They had this deal called May Weekend. It's May Fest. And it's like a week celebration that it's just like a weekend block party. You heard of it's kind of like Freaknik a little bit at Atlanta. This is a black college version of that. And so he's like, "Man, why don't you come down and check out our school? You can come to the May Fest." I'm thinking like, okay, man, I'll come check it out. I go down there and I just have a blast.
It was over with.
Yeah, and they were a good program. They were competing for NAIA national championships. They had some guys they had put in the next level. I don't know if you remember Eric Williams at Dallas Cowboys. He came from Central State. There were some guys that already put in the league. Vince Buck with the New Orleans Saints. There were some other guys that had played with the Jets that were there. So they had a reputation of getting guys looks to the next level. They had the time they were getting a lot of the Florida talent. So there were some dudes there. Like it wasn't when I went out there, like I don't know if you remember Hugh Douglas, Philadelphia Eagles. He came from there. Like he was one of my teammates. Like we had some dudes. It was like it was. So when I go there, I'm looking around, and so I'm watching their team. Like, oh, they got some players here.
We could do something with these.
And it was a cool experience. I went to Oklahoma. Now I'm going to a black college. The experience was different, and so at the time it just kind of fitted. I didn't want to be all in the limelight. I wanted to be with the coach. Billy Joe had coached under Dick Vermeil at the Philadelphia Eagles, so he knew running backs. He had some relationship for connection in the NFL next level. And so they told me I can come here and be a running back, not a quarterback. I said, okay. And that's what happened.
So did you ever get a shot at the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, so I was didn't get drafted. I was projected to be started running back for them at Central State and ended up rushing not the first year because I was 3 hours short, so I had to spend the next year just being a student.
Okay.
And then the next year so the second year there, I played running back. We won the NAIA national championship. I rushed for almost 1,500 yards. And then was projected to come out in the draft, the 10th best rated running back coming out, went to the combine, had a good performance. I was one of the only two running backs at the time that they worked out with the running backs and receivers. Glenn Milburn was the other one. And so I was really thinking like, I'm going to get a shot here. But unfortunately, my past. And so when you're kind of a tweener guy at the time, the league wasn't necessarily fully ready to adopt or that third down back guy as a high drafted guy that there are at now. And so I went undrafted, and I'll never forget, I had a lot of teams when my agent called me. He was like, "We got some options here." But I was kind of irritated that all the teams that wanted to give me a free agent contract didn't draft me. But then he calls me back and says, "Hey, by the way, I got another offer you need to look at." At the time, the Canadian Football League was just starting to bring teams in the States. And he says, "I got a tremendous offer from a guy who used to be a Buffalo Bills head coach that is now taking the K. Stevens and taking the new job at the Sacramento Gold Miners. And he wants to offer you a guaranteed contract." I said, "What do you mean guaranteed?" I'm like, "What do you mean guaranteed?" 2-year guaranteed contract that and he's going to give you pay equal to a third string quarterback. So there's going to be more money.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, let's look at it. And so then the option came, do I go free agent? Which my agent was like, well, if you go free agent, you go into camp, maybe you make out of, you know how it is, rookie camp.
Yeah.
Maybe you make it out of free agent. Maybe you make it out of, you know. And so I was like, at the time I had my son Kendall, and I was like, man, I got to think about him. I got to provide a future. So I opted to go to the Canadian Football League because of the guaranteed money for 2 years.
Okay.
And so that was something I regret because I as I got there, half of our team was from NFL teams, the players.
Yeah.
And they all told me, oh, you'd have made it in the league, dog. Do you because I ended up being a guy that I ended up starting for him.
Yeah.
Not at running back though.
DB. Quarterback?
So no, they ended up starting this guy who at the time I called was an old man, Mike Oliphant. He had spent 8 years with the Cleveland Browns. And Coach Stevenson came to me and said, we're going to start Mike. You won the starting job as a running back, but I want a veteran presence. So I'm going to start him to start out the season. Now, I think he and I both thought Mike going to get banged up. He ain't going to make it through the year. About the third or fourth game, this cat balling.
Yeah.
And so I kind of saw that, man, I got to play. At the time, I was 24 years old. My clock running. And so I went to the coaches and I said, hey, man, I see this slot receiver can get a running start at the line of scrimmage. Can't nobody guard me if you give me a running start. He said, you ever play receiver? I said, no. But can't nobody guard me if you give me a running start.
Right.
So first week go by, they like, nah. 3 weeks later, I'm still coming back every Monday. Because I ain't playing.
Yeah.
I won't play. So one game, he gets his two front teeth knocked out in the middle of the game.
Dang.
So they put me in running back. I'm eating, man. They take it. He in the ambulance going to the hospital to get his teeth. I look up the next quarter, he back. Oh, and this is what he said to me. Nah, Rookie, she ain't finna take my spot. Came back with teeth missing.
Man.
To come back and play. And I said, I'm not going to do it. Because
he knew it. He knew you was going to take it.
I was eating already. And so I went back to coach. I say, man, coach, now they got to pay me my money so they can't cut me.
Yeah, guaranteed, yeah.
So I was like, man, y'all got to do something. I got to do something. So they said, you know what? Go play receiver.
Yeah.
Now they thought we can get him shut up for the whole year because he ain't going to learn how to do this. I started 2 weeks later. Ultimately, being a really good receiver in the Canadian Football League. So Shreveport started the team the next year. I asked him to trade me to Shreveport because my son, I told my agent, I don't want to go back to California. I want to be closer to my son who was, Kendall at the time. Shreveport was closer. I said, man, see if you can get me traded. He's like, they're not going to trade you. But tell them I ain't coming back. I was doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So he ultimately ended up trading me to Shreveport. And Forrest Gregg was my coach there. Ended up being the receiver of the year for him. Then that next year, they wanted to renew my contract. Well, then at the time, the NFL Europe had started.
Oh, yeah.
And the NFL had owned it at the time. It was the WFL before.
Okay.
And so they were sending all the third string guys off rosters to the NFL Europe. And to get drafted, you had to be assigned or potentially on the target of one of the teams.
Okay.
So I ended up getting drafted to the Barcelona Dragons. They had a guy that was the third string running back for the Jets, another guy for the Bills, and then the Dallas Cowboys sent their third string running back over there. I'm in training camp competing against all of them. I beat them all out.
Of course.
And won the starting job as a running back.
Yeah.
And ended up being the running back for them there. I was the second leading rusher in the league at the time, 4 weeks in, behind Saran Stacy, who was at Alabama at the time. And playing against London and the Fridge and them, I got slammed on my shoulder and tore my AC joint in my shoulder. And so I had the Colts and several teams there to look at me. Didn't end up getting signed because the way they were structured, you could get signed. The season ended. It was from April to June, so you can get signed quick enough to go to training camp.
Yeah.
I went into had surgery there. I went into several medical things. They wouldn't pass clearance. So I go back to the Barcelona the next year to try to re-up that. Started again for the next season. And then, but none of the teams, they brought me in the training camp, but never cleared me. And so I decided at that point, I could go back to play the Canadian Football League, but I was like kind of done at that point, Sean. That's when I decided to give it up and come back and devote my time to my son, Kendall.
Now, I remember a point you said was he at Utah or?
He left Oklahoma, graduated here in 3 years, and transferred to Utah. And then was a quarterback there in Utah. Tore his ACL playing against Oregon and Marcus Mariota as he was a starting quarterback there. Ended up having to come back his senior year and really didn't get healthy enough to regain the starting quarterback job. So he battled back and forth with the guy. I'll never forget this, Sean. He got a call. He played in a few games throughout that year, beat Michigan, did some stuff there for Utah at the time. I'll never forget his last college game was at the Las Vegas Bowl. And he calls me on the phone, and they're in there, and he's still quarterback. And, of course, at the time he's just a backup. And he says, Dad, man, I got to ask you something. I said, what's that? He goes, they're wanting to know if I want to play receiver. A lot of our receivers have gone down, and we don't have a lot of guys available. And they want to ask me. I said, was it your last football game? I said, yeah. College football game? I said, yeah. Playing beats watching, bro. Go play.
You're right.
At this point.
Yeah.
And he gets one pass, Sean, thrown at him. Didn't even catch it, I don't believe. Had one target. And because of that, several teams looked at him as a receiver, slot receiver. Okay. And he ended up getting picked up free agently by the Washington Commanders now with Sean McVay. And then when McVay took the Rams job, he brought him over there with the Rams and made a couple $1 million because he, was a sharp, smart guy, knew the quarterback position, but that translated to slot receiver. Had a couple great preseason games and stuck on.
Public speaking. So that's kind of what you...
Funny, I got involved in that through John Odell at FCA, who called me one time, and it really how it started was Coach Stoops called me when he took the job. I never forget, it's a funny story of this. When he first took the job, I had people always calling me, because I had done so well in youth football. He's like, man, you need to go coach for OU. Coach OU. I was like, I ain't coaching OU. You ain't going to ever call me. So I'm sitting there cutting my grass one day, and the kids come in and say, you got to call Coach Stoops on the phone. And I'm thinking it's one of my buddies playing like, man, ain't no dang Coach Stoops. So I said, I'll call him back. Called again, Coach Stoops. And I was like, I get to the phone. I'm thinking like, yeah, man. It was really Bob Stoops. And he had called me wanted me to come speak to the team when they had Tommy and all those guys down there when he first took the job. And I asked him later why, and he says, well, man, I just felt like that you were one of the guys that could really talk about the ups and downs and the do's and don'ts. I feel like that I wanted to have that message brought to my kids. And so that kind of started that. Then John Odell was one of the first ones, and he started telling me, Charles, I really think you could really do, like you got a mess, you do that. And so I got a guy a company called me up and started representing me, and I started getting flown all over the country, Sean, and Alamo Bowls and different events and different universities, and from Ohio State to you name it. They started calling me up and wanting me to be a speaker, and that translated into me ultimately doing camps across the country now, and so that's a combination of what I do. I try to give back as much as I can, try to pay it forward. We're only as good as the legacy we leave behind. And so I want to try to impact as many as I can while I can.
Have you heard the story about the Nobel Peace Prize? And please forgive me if I butcher it, but the general story of it is initially he was just known for selling guns and armaments. I mean, just military stuff, kind of known as the Merchant of Death. Yeah. His brother goes, and again, it's paraphrasing. I don't know exact country or whatever. But his brother went to another country. He died from some type of disease. But the people that did the obituary or wrote up in the paper thought it was Nobel.
Right.
Nobel, yeah. So they were talking bad about him, and like he's seeing his obituary in the paper. Like what people think about him. This is your legacy. You kill people. All this stuff bad about him. And he said, man, I can't leave that legacy behind. So
change.
That was one of the reasons he created the Nobel Peace Prize.
It's funny you say that, Sean. I remember the first time I came back. You got to realize. So you talk about so people ask me all the time which if I had to do it over, I write my book differently than I wrote it. That's a long story to that. But I wrote my book not because I wanted to write a book and tell them. I didn't cooperate with the NCAA when they wanted to get OU the death penalty. You mentioned they were already on probation.
Right.
When I got in trouble, they were trying to get them the death penalty.
Okay.
But I refused to cooperate.
Yeah.
They were coming to him, trying to talk to me. I was like, man, I ain't got nothing to say to you.
Yeah.
So I ended up writing my book, not because I wanted to cooperate, but it was because I kept reading people telling me who I was.
Yeah.
Well, I did what I did. You don't know me. I know me. I'm reading people telling me like who I am.
Yeah.
So that's why I ultimately really did that. And then the first time I came back to Oklahoma, I went to a football game, and I really wasn't. I was kind of oblivious to sports talk radio when I was playing.
Okay.
Okay. I knew media after the game. I didn't really listen.
Yeah.
But my father-in-law at the time, he listened to sports talk all the time. So we went to the game. He taught me to go on OU football, and I just went to the game.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was on the sideline.
Right.
I'm at the game. True story. I'm turning on the car. We're riding back from the game, and everybody on the post broadcast is talking about me.
Dang.
I can't believe he had the audacity to show up at the game.
Right.
Yeah, they were just tripping. The callers.
Man.
And I'm like, man. And so that was my challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave a bigger legacy and different legacy. They don't know who I am. I'm not about that. I made a mistake, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm different than that. I've learned, what I'm saying? So that became my challenge to not leave. I could have went anywhere else and lived.
Yeah.
I came right back to the same place because this is where I'm from.
Yeah.
I'm from Lawton, but I grew up in Oklahoma, so I made my home here in Oklahoma. And you're not gonna run me off just because you want to talk about me. So I'm gonna get right in your face and leave a legacy. And it's what my challenge has been over these years, because that one first radio show that I listened to, that just dogged me.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what it takes. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like we wouldn't have the Nobel Peace Prize if his brother didn't die.
Well, and you know what's funny, Sean? Like, I remember when I first started coaching, like, and being involved in youth sports, you don't know how many parents
Oh, my goodness.
was like, you ain't gonna let your son play for Charles Thompson. He's a drug dealer. Like, he's this and he's that. And I mean, it was just, I had to deal with, the persecution beyond belief, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I did?
Yep, just kept going. Keep showing up. Keep
That's
going.
right. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I coach at basketball at Jones High School, and our head coach, Jordy Harris, he's gonna be excited I mentioned his name, but he has a tattoo on his arm, just right there on his forearm, says "Keep showing up."
Yes.
And
keep doing what you're doing.
It's just as simple as that.
Keep fighting. Listen, Sean, I can tell you, for when I was incarcerated, that was it. I had a buddy of mine named Fish, older gentleman, kind of took me on his wings, and that's what he told me. He said, "Young fella, don't let them break you. Keep waking up.
Yeah.
As long as you're able to wake up, keep showing up." And that's just that's it.
You got a purpose.
I often wonder, I often wonder, athletically, career-wise, if I don't make the decision to be involved in the things that I was off the field, how would that have played out for me, in terms of my career at the University of Oklahoma, my legacy there as a player.
Yeah.
Where would I be as a man now, today? Because, I don't know that I would want to change the man that I am today. But trust me, the persecution and the pain and the suffering on the way was tough. But, man, Sean, I can tell you, I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with who I am. I know that God's blessed me. He's blessed me to have my kids and my family. Yeah. I would not have been the father to them that I would have been if not for the experiences, both good and bad. They would not be doing the things that they've done. They were all paying it forward. And a little bit is because I didn't hide them from the do's and the don'ts.
Yeah.
I wasn't a parent that didn't have them come listen to me talk. I wasn't a parent that I should tell them, you're going to get probably talked about because your daddy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated handcuffs. Your daddy did do these things when he's at University of Oklahoma. But here's who I am now, and here's what I'm going to be about. And we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to be Thompsons about it. We Thompson strong. We just don't give up.
I really appreciate you coming and stopping by. And like this is what this podcast is about, is honoring Oklahoma legends.
I appreciate that.
And just, whether it's good or bad. The legacy you're leaving now. I've seen you coach all of these kids and doing tournaments and stuff like that. We touch a lot of lives, different ways.
Listen, man, it's an honor and it was a privilege for you to even offer. And listen, I'll tell you this, Sean. The only thing that I would ask is this. And listen, I've been fighting the battles, here in Oklahoma City, obviously for inner city football. I'm a little disappointed, as I mentioned. The thing I'd ask for you for the cause is, constantly remind the community. Yeah. Don't forget about the kids that don't have.
Oh, exactly.
That can't afford. That maybe aren't as privileged. Like, they built all these complexes around here for soccer. You know what I'm saying? They got all these things for different stuff, but they built a complex where I've been for 20 years.
Yeah.
and didn't consult with me one time about it. And now that they building it's brand new and worth millions, they didn't worry about it when it wasn't worth millions. They let me out there and do what I want when I had, thesis coming out of the plumbing, all this and that. But now it's millions. They have a grand opening, but don't invite any of the program or the people that has helped continue to make Woodson. Right. Not it's about me, but it's about the legacy that we did there.
A lot of it,
And so I'm challenging you and other people in this community, and don't let them forget about those that don't look like everybody else to have the money.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Keep showing up.
Thanks,
I appreciate
man.
it, baby.
Appreciate it, Sean.
All right.